I don't know why that's doing that. Having some technical issues. What's going on right now? Okay. Oh, here we go. We are live. All right. Hi, folks. Welcome back to another episode of today's Misguided Mentors, episode 2. And so I'm super excited about this. This is where we pretty much help people identify misguided mentors. We encourage ethical leadership. And we also enhance entrepreneurial awareness, as I like to put it. Help them navigate the self-development matrix. Now, I'm super excited to chat about this because this is, God, I want to make sure I'm actually doing the right thing. Let me check something right quick. Chat about this because this is... Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing a whole episode that was not actually recording me. So yeah, I'm really excited to hop on here and chat a little bit about this. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I just got done watching the Gary Brecka, the interview that JT Fox did with Gary Brecka. And man, I was triggered. There's a lot of things that came up that he was talking about that were very similar to what I experienced. And so let me make sure I get my chat up here in case someone wants to talk on that. I don't know why this is happening. That is strange. You know, every time you think you got everything nailed down, you don't. All right. I'm just going to have to wing it. So, God, that's bothering me, though. All right. I'm going to let it go. Unfortunately, if there's anybody who drops some comments on the YouTube channel, I'm not going to be able to see it. That's okay, though. So, yeah, like I said, there was... You're sending a stream that isn't... This is weird, saying that it's not receiving data to YouTube when I know I'm live. I just checked right now. Anyways, I wanted to talk about this podcast, or I don't know if it's a podcast, an interview, or whatever you want to call it. But like I said, it brought up some feelings for me. It brought up some memories and was triggering because, quite frankly, a lot of what Gary Brecka experienced, I also experienced. And I was actually shocked to see that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he, I didn't know a lot of the stuff he's talking about. So what I did was, I'm probably not going to do this live too long, but what I did was I made some little notes here, timestamps on things that he spoke about. And then I want to elaborate on it and give you my thoughts on these specific points on this conversation. So stick with me through this. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through the whole thing. So I might have to do a separate one on this just so I make sure that I cover all the things I want to talk about, because as I was making notes and timestamps on this, I just realized I was only like 25-30 minutes in, and it looks like it's at least an hour and 20 minutes or so of an interview. So there's a lot of stuff he covered, and there's a lot of good things that he explained that he went through in his experience. So I want to talk about that. So anyways, what I'm going to do is share my screen. We're going to jump right into it. And I know for you guys on Instagram, you're not going to be able to see this, but if you wanted to, you can go to YouTube. Today's Misguided Mentors is a channel, and you will be able to actually see what I'm sharing. But I did want to talk to that. What's up, Jared Kovalicic? So ironically, man, you were the first person to sell me Grant Cardone's products. I think you sold me... I'm pretty sure if my memory recalls, you sold me 10 Cardone University accounts, and I was actually the only employee for my only company. No, I take that back. I did have another employee, but I was the only sales rep for that company. And somehow I was convinced to buy 10 accounts, because if I didn't, then I would never end up getting the sales reps to actually fill those accounts, which was kind of a fucking stupid decision on my part, to be honest, looking back on that now. Of course, that was like 3 years ago, but I'm over it. So anyways, like I said, if you wanted to see what I'm sharing, you can chime into the YouTube channel. Check it out for yourself. I'm going to share this. So let's tap right into this. Here we go. All right, so I want to talk. Let's just let him talk for a little bit, and then I'm gonna give you my thoughts on what he's talking about here. I think the first timestamp, he's talking about how he's getting this intoxicating feeling. Is very attractive. He was being sold a dream, that type of stuff.
Initially, they seemed very on board with that. It was very intoxicating to us to have someone of Grant's stature, Brandon Dawson's stature, that kind of money, that kind of access, that kind of marketing prowess. Take our clinic, which was profitable, and we were servicing thousands of patients and thousands of clients, and really allow us to go to the masses instead of affecting thousands of lives, potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of lives. And my wife and I, Sage, that started the business with me, it was a very intoxicating, offer. And
all right, I'm just gonna stop it there. So that actually, like I said, a lot of what Gary says is triggering to me. It brings up a lot of bad memories. And again, it's kind of ironic that Jared is on here because, like I said, Jared, you were the first person to sell me a 3-year contract for like $18,000 for a program that I didn't even need. I could have bought an individual account maybe for $500, or I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, but it definitely wasn't $18,000. But it's kind of ironic you're on the call checking this out. But yeah, so the way things get presented to you with the 10X organization is it is very intoxicating. It is very attractive. It's a shiny object. It's a dream that's being sold to you. It's a solution, a promised solution. Usually not really something that gets delivered. I honestly, like I said, it wasn't all bad. And for the most part, I would say that, what value I did get out of it, it was helpful. But for the most part, a lot of the shit I bought, I just didn't need. And that was actually the fault of the actual sales rep that was selling me something and more focused on, as Gary says in this interview, profit over people. And that's what ends up happening. And you can say whatever. You can say, Gary, and yeah, if you truly, Jared, I see you say my apologies. If you truly mean that, man, then I accept your apology, man. I don't know if you're still a 10X rep or not. I haven't obviously talked to you since you sold me that product. And so I have no idea what you're into these days. But yeah, if you are apologizing, apology accepted, man. Because even if you are still with Grant Cardone, I know that they train you to do that shit, and it's a very vulture-like, predatory type behavior and way of selling that is really hard to deconstruct. And that's my opinion, anyways. And that comes from somebody who's been in sales for quite a bit and has been on both sides of selling, the aggressive selling, and then people that, and as someone as I normally am, is just not trying to convince somebody and not high pressure somebody and really just, let them make a decision for themselves. But aside from that, yeah, it's very hard to say no to something that is like very, very attractive. You know what I mean? Like, and here's why. I want to break this down. When you're a person who when you have a problem, you don't even have to have a problem. If you have a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt, a little bit of uncertainty, and someone is aggressively claiming they have a solution for you, they're just so fucking gung-ho about like, hey, this is going to solve your problem. And it's going to, take you to the moon. It's going to take your business to the promised lands. It's going to do this. It's really hard, especially when it's coming with third-party validation, and there's just a lot of reinforcement, a lot of pressure that I just explained. It's really hard to say no, and the reality is people have a hard time saying no as it is in general. So now you have a problem, or you have a little bit of fear, and then someone claims they have a solution for you, and if you don't do this, then you're not serious. What's bigger, the problem or the solution? Like there's a lot of brainwashing tactics that kind of go along with that. And by the way, Jared, I'm glad to hear you're not with 10X, and that's crazy, man. You must have left right after, because I think I bought that back in 2020, maybe 2021. So you probably left right after that sale. That's crazy, man. Would love to connect with you, dude, and catch up with you. But yeah, so it's really hard for people to say no. And it sounds crazy, but this is, I mean, I always talk about this, like peer pressure is very much a real thing in business also. A lot of people talk about peer pressure and they like to, they like to think that peer pressure only exists on the schoolyard, in school, on the playground. And the reality is there's a ton of peer pressure that's going on in business, especially in the sales industry. And if you're that person that's selling that way, or if you're a person who's bought products that way before, and you're in that environment, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is what he's talking about. He was sold something, and it was very hard for him to say no to. Now I want to talk about, like I said, there's just some timestamps I just randomly picked that brought some things up, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on this. So let's just zip on over to the next section here, where I think he starts talking about his introduction to Dana White. And again, if you're not familiar, Elena Cardone was saying that she introduced Dana White to Gary Brecka, and he kind of explains on this section here how he was introduced to Dana White.
His events? No, Dana White. To be very specific, Dana White was introduced to us by a woman named Carrie Kasem, who was a friend of Elena Cardone's. So, and Carrie Kasem also had an incredible experience with us and said, "You changed my life. This I want to give you guys as a gift to Dana White." And she put Dana White and I on a common text thread and said, "Dana, you got to meet this guy. He changed my life." At that time, we were already on the platform of 10XL. So, to their credit, Elena Cardone introduced us to Carrie Kasem.
But it's not like you met him at the event. There was an introduction, but there was, it wasn't like you met at the event. The premise is they came to the event, and then you were backstage, and you built a relationship with them because of them. So it sounds like there was a relationship before. Interesting.
Yes. So, so in any case, I mean, the threat really scared us because we're a young business. We didn't have a lot of cash. Grant had been very good to us up to that point. We loved the idea of going out to the masses.
Okay, I think that was the part I just wanted to cover. So I didn't know this, but when Aaron Smith Levin was from Growing Up Scientology, if you're not familiar who that is, to follow his YouTube channel, he talks about Scientology and Scientologists, talks a lot about Grant Cardone, obviously because Grant Cardone is a Scientologist. He made a comment in his podcast that Carrie Kasem was a Scientologist, and I looked into it right before I did this and found out, in fact, that yes, Carrie Kasem is a Scientologist. And I'll switch this while I'm talking. Yeah, I didn't know that. It seems to be quite a bit of connections with Scientology, and it's quite ironic. And when I first heard Kasem, the word Kasem, it reminded me of Casey Kasem. And I know that makes me seem older now because Casey Kasem was an old show, an old radio show where they did this top 50 songs and they would basically count down the top 50 songs in the nation. And it was a pretty cool little radio station, actually, if you were into music. And he had this really good radio voice that made him fun to listen to. But apparently his daughter, Carrie Kasem, is a Scientologist. And so, there's this whole Scientology connection where they introduced. My question is now, again, everybody can have their own religion, which Scientology is not a religion, but everybody can have their own belief, their own religion. But I have a problem with, organizations that fund like things like human trafficking, things like, scamming people, deceiving people, fraud. Do I have proof that Scientology is doing that? No. Do I believe they're doing that? 100%. Yes. Especially after my experience with Grant Cardone and the 10X organization for several years. Definitely. There's some scamming going on there. Can I prove it? Unfortunately, no. At least it would take a lot of effort to prove that. But, guys like Gary Brecka sharing his story, he's obviously treading lightly on what he's saying, but I think we're picking up what he's putting down, and the fact that he is speaking his heart, and he's not really holding back. Well, he is holding back a little bit, I can tell. Obviously, there's a couple things that he says in this interview that indicates to me that his lawyer said, careful what you say. This stuff could be used in the court of law, and you might be getting some stuff thrown back at you that you're going to have to clarify. So I can see that, but it's still cool that he's bringing it to light, because there is some scamming going on. There's some fraud going on, and it's my belief and it's my experience as well. And especially with what he's sharing, I've experienced this. Everything I'm talking about, everything that Gary's talking about, 95% of what he's saying, I went through as well. Which, like I said, when I watched this, it shocked me, because I thought he was legit partners with Brandon Dawson and Grant Cardone and the 10X organization. But it was a partnership, but it ended up being not any type of partnership. It was also a paid programming partnership, and he talks about that. I haven't even gotten to that timestamp, and I don't think I will today, but we'll talk about that, how they create the illusion of a partnership, and really you're just buying products from them, and they want you to implement courses and events, and then they want you to get more and more and more and more. And Gary talks about it being a hungry beast and things like that. So it's all the same shit, and I experienced it as well. So let me get back to this, and let's go to the next timestamp. Oh yeah, so this is important for me to go over, because this is the biggest thing I noticed as well. Let's listen to this section that Gary talks about. Actually, there's two. Let's see here, a couple sections on this, and so I'm going to cover it right now. So pay attention to this.
You had neurologists, OBGYNs, physicians that were being required to take sales training to overcome objectives of patients, and this isn't what they were designed to do. They were designed to practice medicine and recommend what was in the best interest of the patient. So, and then my message really started to resonate. The stage talks, the interviews, the podcast, especially Joe Rogan started to create a
voluminous. Yeah, the last thing we did was you were on a plane. You were on a red eye. Now I remember. We were on a red eye. Just
I was on a lot of red eyes flying across the country. Yeah, sorry, I was on a lot of red eyes. Sage and I flew lots of red eyes back and forth across the country, just trying to meet the demand for podcasts and interviews and stage talks, and really just trying to get the word out there. And I'm not complaining about that. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I would have taken any.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead because he comes back to this. But what he was talking about, if you didn't hear him, was profit over people. It became profit over people for him. And so, or he noticed that the organization started shifting from people to profit over people. And this is super important to note, because he brings it up again. And then, and then I want to give you my thoughts on this. By the way, what's up, Steve Anderson? Yeah, man, I can't see your face. I can see your profile icon. I'll check this out. Shoot me a personal message, man. I'm assuming that you're talking about the Fort Lauderdale home show that I seen you at. So, hook me up with a email in my message, man, and I'll reach back out to you as soon as I get off of this live here. All right, let's listen to Gary, though, on this second part. He brings it up again.
We would have daily sales calls, overcoming objections, sales training. It became very high-intensity sales, and it became profit over people. And how much stuff could we cram down the throats of our clients, of our patients, basically of our clients. I don't have patients. I'm not a physician, but really holding, doctors and nurses and physician assistants and the team accountable for sales and not for patient outcomes. We essentially didn't measure impact. We didn't measure patient outcomes. We didn't measure, we didn't talk about our mission and our vision and our values anymore. We talked purely about sales, quotas, targets, sales objectives, new products that we could push on people.
Okay, super important to hear what he was saying here, because this is exactly the vibes that I experienced as well. When I first got involved with Grant Cardone, I was doing quite well. Matter of fact, it was during COVID, and that was the best year I had. And I think my business finally broke $1 million in profit, or not profit, $1 million in gross revenue that year. And then the next year it got even better. And so I was doing really good. You know, that was only like my second year in my construction company. So it was doing quite well. And I wasn't so profit driven. I was actually very, very focused on making a good impact and giving my customers a positive experience, which is what allowed me to scale my company pretty well and build the trust in the community. I wasn't focused on money. And most of the money, almost all of it, was going right back into the business anyway. So I experienced that feeling of when I started getting more engrossed in these 10X events, in these courses I was taking, in these lives or these Zoom calls I was always jumping on with them. It was all about money, just like Gary talked about. Money, sales, handling objections. There was never a talk about customer service. Not once have I ever, in the several years I was involved with the 10X organization, not one time did they ever bring up customer service or how to give your customers a great experience. I mean, even the $40,000, that was probably the most expensive course or program I bought was Brandon Dawson's 10X 360 Total Business Transformation course for $40,000 for a 2-day event. Even in that, they never brought up customer service. And that was supposed to be a program that was going to give you everything you need to scale and transform your business, all prepackaged for you, all the answers you need. By the way, it didn't do any of that. And I'll talk about that another time, but it was all bullshit. And I'm really glad that Gary is talking about his experience with Brandon, because I think that guy is really one of the lowest people and really has no care for people and is so driven about money and a very self-serving entrepreneur he is. But anyways, it definitely becomes profit over people. And if you notice that within yourself, then you, in a company you're with or people you're around or an organization that you're associated with, you know that's the wrong thing. You know that's the type of energy you don't want to feed into. That's the type of direction you don't want to go. And that's not one that's going to end well. The profit over people mentality has a shelf life. And yeah, you see Grant Cardone out here, you know, operating with the Wild Wild West, and you see a bunch of other guys I call out too, right? Wes Watson, and Andy Elliott, Ty Lopez. There's a lot of guys that I call out that do the same shit, and it is the Wild Wild West, which is why I created this channel. By the way, like I said, there's nobody out here stopping these guys. No one's speaking up, and no one's really preparing particularly young entrepreneurs to navigate this predatory self-development matrix I call. There really is no preparation for it. And you get sucked into a vortex and you start going down a rabbit hole. You start forking out money. You start chasing success in other people. You start seeking for the answers in other people. You start glorifying and idolizing people. And it just becomes a dark life, and you lose yourself. You honestly lose yourself, and quite frankly, you end up adopting someone else's mindset and their whole thought process. It happened to me. You know, I talk about this, about how I started thinking like Grant Cardone, acting like Grant Cardone, literally just modeled and mimicked him, and became a puppet for him. And you know, I have no shame admitting that now, because I can clearly, you know, I know myself so well now, and it would be really hard for somebody to do that to me again. I don't think that would ever happen to me again. But it did happen to me, and I can clearly see that looking back on it. And it's important for people like me to elaborate on that experience and that whole journey, because it could be happening to people. And usually, if you're in a cult, you usually don't know it while you're in the cult. There's plenty of people that told me I was in a cult. A lot of family members, a lot of friends were saying, dude, you're in a cult, man. There's a good chance everything that they're saying is bullshit. And, you know, I couldn't really hear it. I was blocking it out. I didn't want to hear it. I would make excuses. Oh, well, you're just living below your potential. Oh, you just want to be average. It's all that brainwashing shit that keeps you ignoring the signs and the red flags of what the truth actually is. So, anyways, back to, I might have went on a side trail there, but I think the whole purpose of me talking about that was profit over people is a very dangerous road to go down. And so pay attention to that. You know what I mean? Especially if you're being sold that way. If you can always tell when someone just cares about making a sale, or if they actually care about you and they actually care about providing you a solution. So pay attention to that. All right, so let's let me see. Did I actually cover this? Let's go back into this next section right quick. Hopefully you guys on Instagram can hear this too. Okay, so I covered that. By the way, I gotta say this. 27. Did I not do that right? 2708. Let me go back to this because I feel like I skipped a section.
By the way, you and I both know some.
Yeah. Okay. So he was talking right here in this section. He's talking about what he was asking Gary. What were people saying to you? When you seen them after they found out, you were a partner with Grant Cardone, and he explains that real quick.
The same people, so I know. Well, you don't need to give names, but I know what is also being said. What were you hearing?
Yeah.
Because they probably like you, right? Would probably like you. And
they were like, Gary, you seem like a good guy. What are you doing with them? You and your wife seem like you're well-intentioned people. What are you doing with this high-pressure sales company? What are you doing with these guys? How did you get duped into this?
Okay, so I also, like I said, had the same experience. People were like, why are you doing this? You're in a cult. Why are you, you don't seem like you're behaving like your normal self. Same thing. Gary got asked the same question and the same thing. Now I want to bring something else up. This conversation has came up mainly in private conversations. This would be the first time I think I've talked about this a little more specifically, but I want to bring something up right now. I always wonder, why do people like John Maxwell or Les Brown or people who seem like good-hearted people, why do they associate themselves with Grant Cardone and the 10X organization? Haven't you ever wondered that? I have. I'm like, there's only two reasons why that would happen. Either they literally don't know and they believe in their heart that they're good people and they're not doing any evil and they actually care about people, or they're just turning a blind eye and it's all about the money for them. Maybe, I don't know. But like I said, guys like John Maxwell and Les Brown and maybe a couple other people I can name who I've seen at a conference with Grant or speaking or at a, Grant Cardone Foundation Caribbean cruise. I always wonder, I'm like, what are they doing? Like, don't they know that he is, an unethical leader? Not only that, he's a Scientologist, and Scientology is, almost, they're highly likely to be funding things like human trafficking and a bunch of other illegal activities and really inhumane things, more specifically. So I don't know. Ask yourself that question. If anybody knows the answer to that, let me know, because I've always wondered that. And I'm so baffled and I'm confused why people who seem like good-hearted, ethical leaders are associating themselves with guys like that. I do not get it. All right, let's jump into this. So I think this next section, Gary starts talking about how Brandon Dawson operates, his involvement with the company and what was happening and how he was being charged and things like that. So listen to this real quick.
Remember, Brandon Dawson was CEO of both companies. He's CEO of Cardone Ventures and he's CEO of 10X Health. So he could buy companies in Cardone Ventures and force 10X Health to do business with them. They were also charging fees to Cardone Ventures. Cardone Ventures got monthly fees for what they called the strategic business unit, which was basically a bunch of fresh out of college, 23-ish-year-olds that had read some sales training books, had no background in medicine, no background in functional care, no background in genetics, no background in blood work, supplementation, and these fees were paid by 10X Health up to Cardone Ventures. One of the basis for the lawsuit was...
Okay. So apparently, Brandon Dawson, part of the contract was that he was going to implement his strategic business unit, which was, like Gary said, composed of a bunch of early 20-year-old kids who didn't know anything about the industry he was in, one, and two, probably had no business experience. I'm willing to bet, I mean, obviously I'm making an assumption, but I'm willing to bet even if they did have business experience, it probably wasn't that much unless they started a business while they were 16 years old. Not a lot of people are starting businesses when they're 16-year-old. So, yeah, if you've ever went to Grant Cardone's, any of his organizational events, a retreat or a speaking event, a 10X business boot camp, anything like that, real estate summit, you might have noticed there's a bunch of young 20-year-old kids. They look like they're, 16, 18-year-old kids trying to sell you $10,000, $20,000 products or higher. And they don't know the first thing about, they're trying to speak like they understand your situation. They're trying to speak like they understand that they have the solution. It's really a weird situation. You got these kids trying to pitch you so hard while you're eating lunch, while you're in the bathroom. I've talked about this before where I've literally been pitched in the bathroom as I'm getting cleaned up from going piss. It's a really strange, vulturous, predatory environment that's very uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And so it's exactly what Gary's describing. It's like you got these young 23-year-old kids trying to handle your business problems when, Gary's twice their age at least probably, and he's probably thinking, like, what can you tell me? How can you help me with this? You're underqualified for this position. So that's the type of environment you can expect if you've ever gone to one of these events. It's pretty wild. It's quite funny. So yeah, the strategic business unit, unfortunately, was something that Gary was forced to pay for. It was part of the implementation in the contract, it sounds like, and he had to pay for that. He had to pay for 23-year-old kids to give him business advice and solve his problem. And it sounds like there was always problems from what Gary was saying. There's always something going on. He was always making calls. So it sounded like he talked to a lot of young 20-year-old kids about his business problems. And he probably never got an answer. They're really good at doing that. They're really good at running you around. And really, even if they know they can't help you, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I got to talk to the higher ups, or I got to talk to this person, and they'll never get back to you, which is a whole nother conversation. Super unethical, very unprofessional. The only time you get engagement from them is if you show interest in buying. Soon as you buy, the only interest they're going to have in you is if you show interest to buy again. If you show no interest to buy, you will drop off of the face of the planet to them. You are dead to them. I swear to God, this is the type of environment and the type of energy that's being promoted there. So it's pretty crazy. It's pretty messed up. All right, so a couple of last things to touch base on here. So let me kind of get through this. I keep forgetting to switch my camera so you guys can see me talk here. Let me get back to this. All right, so it looks like...
Lane is clean.
Oops. 3112. All right, so I think Gary talks about promises not delivered. It looks like I made a note about this. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Because the test worked, the supplements worked, people were having a positive result. And then what happened was we were putting so many new clients into the top of the funnel that the business just essentially collapsed. It collapsed under the weight of its own success. The capacity to scale the business was just not there. We ran out of inventory for 4 to 6 months. Clients were really, really upset. There was a lot of vitriol in the promise that we made to clients and our inability to keep that promise. Our revenues began to collapse month over month until we actually fell to less than $3 million a month. At one point, Brandon was talking about breaking the company up.
Okay, so Kat, you might have remembered when you were sharing to me that the Yelp reviews about 10X Health, what Gary is talking about is exactly why they were getting bad reviews. They were all about money, 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 converting, and they were never about delivering what they were selling. They only worried about that until they fulfilled everything they had. Once they ran out of inventory, they didn't stop. They kept selling and selling and selling and just loading people into the system, and which is why they started getting bad reviews for 10X Health. So he starts talking about this. Yeah, exactly. Over-promising and under-delivering. So pay attention to this last piece. And he talks about a little bit more about how this funnel collapsed and why it just, there were some people pissed off, why this failed.
They apply the same high-pressure sales tactics used in real estate, and this massive churn of people coming in the top of the funnel. The reason why you don't see the same faces all the time is this beast is very hungry. You have to dump thousands and thousands and thousands of bodies into the top of the funnel because people are not succeeding. They're falling out the bottom of the funnel. By the time they fall out the bottom of the funnel, they realize they paid all these exorbitant fees. They've been to all of these seminars. They've been to all of these events. Most of the time, they're damn near bankrupt. They're broke. And they don't have the fiscal wherewithal to challenge the Cardone empire. They don't have.
Okay, so what he just said there, very, very important. He's basically talking about how that's the last thing I'm going to cover on this. And like I said, there's so much that he talked about that I'm going to have to probably do in multiple sections. Mark, what's up, man? Total BS. Yeah. Hopefully you're talking about, hopefully not what I'm saying is total BS, but I think it's total BS how Gary was treated. And I'm not even a huge fan of Gary, to be honest. There's some things I still don't agree with that Gary claims and promotes, being able to predict mortality rate to the month. I've never agreed with that. I'd never believed that. And I feel like that's like, I don't know, you almost would have to be God to be able to do that. And so there's just a couple of things that rub me wrong with Gary, but I think overall he probably is a good guy. I think he might have made some bad choices going into this partnership, and I think from what I'm hearing and the energy I'm feeling from him, I think he realized it, man. I think he realized that he made a bad decision. He was becoming that person that he really isn't, and a person he didn't want to be. So I think that was actually happening. But let's talk about these promises that were never delivered and this funnel collapsing on itself. This is exactly why 10X Health had so many bad reviews on Yelp and why this all came crashing down. And also this is why, like he said, people were coming out the back, falling through the funnel. And by the time they actually left the funnel, they had already gone through all these courses. This is an experience I went through. So when Gary is talking about this, honestly, he's giving me some imagery and some flashbacks and some bad memories, let's put it that way. But yeah, I did the same thing. I went through the funnel and I bought every single course. I went to every single event. Obviously, I became a 10X business coach, and so I went to those events because if you weren't consuming it, then they would shame you and all that shit, and you weren't serious about your future and all that stuff. And so, man, it's crazy because what Gary described here is exactly the way I felt coming out of it. I was exhausted. I was spent literally, financially, emotionally, mentally. It was not a great experience for me when I realized, like, holy shit, what actually happened to me? And so it's exactly what Gary described here. And that last little section that I just clipped is that you're so exhausted by the end of that you just don't want to, you don't even have the wherewithal. You don't have the capacity to challenge them. And there's a lot of other reasons too that they don't get challenged aside from just being spent. A lot of people, they're embarrassed. A lot of people, they want their ROI. If they're like me, there's people that have spent millions with that organization. I talk about how I forked out a couple $100,000 plus. I feel bad for the people that, pulled out like HELOCs on their homes and pulled out their 401ks and invested it with him and stuff like that because, they just want to forget about it sometimes. And it's probably a really hard thing to get over. Fortunately for me, I got into a really good space. I know I talk about this, but I'm well over that experience, which makes it easy for me to talk about. And also the fact that, you know, I'm actually helping people and bringing awareness to this. And not only that, it enlightened me to the entire deception of the self-development space. So it kind of became my passion after going through this experience personally. So it's a very real thing. I'm excited Gary's talking about this. I'm excited that he's for the most part being honest. Obviously he's kind of being careful about the things that he's saying, but the things he's talking about is important for him to highlight and emphasize. And so I really appreciate that in him. And so again, if you're somebody, apparently there's potentially a class action lawsuit that might come of this. I think is much needed. So if you're a person that has been, had a similar experience with 10X organization, particularly Cardone Ventures or Brandon Dawson or Grant Cardone, be sure to reach out. There's a number. Well, I can give you that number too. It's been posted on the PR News article. It's been posted. I think it's on this JT Fox interview as well. So if you haven't seen this, go watch the full episode on JT Fox's channel. He's got the whole interview posted there. So it's a pretty fascinating conversation that they had. And so, but anyways, I am going to cut off the YouTube live right now. And so I'll cover more of this. Just because, like I said, there's some more bullet points, and I think I only got a third through the interview, and so I'll pick that up. I don't know if I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, actually, give you guys a heads up. If you've never seen Natalie Webster's podcast, it's basically Scientology: Life After a Cult. I'm going to be doing a podcast on her channel tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have not seen her channel, I did one before months back, probably a year ago now. And so I'm excited to hop on there and revisit that because she obviously talks about Scientology and the deception in that organization. And so we're probably going to be talking a little bit about this topic. And of course, we're going to be talking about Scientology as well because, let's just face it. I was basically being turned into a Scientologist without even knowing it. And so I've talked about that. And that's kind of where my involvement with my Scientology experience comes in because, I basically 10X organization is a repackaged Scientology organization. And so I talk about that quite a bit. So if you have time to check that out, pop on there. If you miss it, it'll be on there recorded. Be sure you check that out. And then probably the day after, I'll hop on here and do another live, right? Because I'm trying to get a little more consistent with doing some videos on YouTube. And fixing these glitches. For some reason, it keeps saying YouTube's not getting enough info to promote the video or something like that. So this is part of navigating, right? Anyways, thank you guys so much for chiming in to the second episode of today's Misguided Mentors. Have yourself a good evening, and I will check in with you guys